Hello YouTube, I'm Pilot Stud, and today we are taking a look at the improved F15E and other variants by DC Designs for Microsoft Flight Simulator. Let's get into this video. Now, as you guys know, I've looked at this aircraft before and there was a mixed bag reaction to it for sure, and I actually unlisted my review because, if I'm being completely honest, I wasn't as transparent and unbiased as I should be, and therefore I didn't like the video after I released it. But now I'm redoing this review with the improved F15 by DC Designs. Let's see how this one goes. In today's video, I test this aircraft in multiplayer with its new sonic boom, fly around the skies over Lakenheath Air Force Base here in beautiful Suffolk at USAF Air Force Base, and I give you the pros and cons of buying this aircraft. Let's get right into it. So before I get into the cockpit, let me state that the sounds on this aircraft are now immaculate. They really are superb. In addition to that, the flight model is a lot better and there's so fewer bugs, which of course we'd really want. Now, looking at the gear assembly, you can see it's nice. It's not the best. I mean, they could do a better job with it, I'm sure. But there's quite a few details here. The landing lights don't look 100%, I'll admit. They definitely did a better job with the back gear assembly. This one looks very good in my opinion. But you don't care how the gears look, you care about the cockpit and how this aircraft flies. So let's get into it. So here we are in the cockpit. I'm using track IR to get a good look of the instruments right now, and you can see, my goodness, it looks very nice. There hasn't been much change here now. Now, there hasn't been too much differences here. We'll get the aircraft started up in a minute. Most of the buttons work, but not all, so that is a bit annoying, I'll admit. But as the developer states, this is not a study level aircraft. This is a fun aircraft that you can fly around. It's not DCS level, so don't use it for that. But just looking around, RAF Lakenheath, it looks superb. Microsoft Flight Simulator looks breathtaking. We've got our throttle assembly down here, and I have to say this is probably the best bit about the cockpit, because it's not perfect for me in some places. It does look a bit like the Flight Simulator X cockpit, especially with those rudder pedals down there. They just don't look good. But the throttle is actually modelled really well, in my opinion. The side stick, again, could do with a bit of work. It looks like it's kind of out of Flight Simulator X. We've got all our lights down to this side as well, and you can see all of our fantastic manual gauges up there, because the F15 is actually a pretty old aircraft. Before we get into the air, let's talk about price. This plane costs £27 or $26.99 from the Just Flight store. It's also coming to the Microsoft Flight Simulator marketplace, but you don't just get the F15C, you also get the D, E and I variant. All different. They seem to have quite different cockpits, and of course one of them has got 2 seats in the cockpit, that one being the E. £27 is pretty hefty for an add-on like this because it's not 100% study level. Then again, I don't think it's too bad for a Microsoft Flight Simulator add-on when we've got people charging just under that for the 737 MAX, but we won't talk about that here. Let's hop into the cockpit and get everything started up. There we go, we've got our avionics on now, got our generator on, pitot heater on, engine ice on. That doesn't seem to work, sadly. Window ice on, yep, sure thing, we need that. You can see we've got some of the displays already on. You can also hear the sound a lot more realistic, a lot more like how they would in the F15 as well. Let's get the fuel on now. We've got engine 2 starting up now. Both our engines are getting up and running now, and as you can see, it sounds very nice, much better than the default version, and we also don't have any engine bugs on the runway. Might sound a bit quiet, but I have toned the sound down just a bit so you don't deafen yourself, so you can actually hear what I'm saying. Something I did notice, a bit of a bug here, when the engines start up, this fuel flow meter seems to just go wild and keeps flipping over. I'm not too sure if it's like that in the F15, I wouldn't imagine so, but yeah, both engines are started up now. I started up this aircraft with no manual. I just kind of used basic aviation knowledge, I guess, kind of following through what you do in the airliners. And that worked, but if you are stuck, there is a very good manual that comes along with this aircraft as well. A lot of the buttons don't work, so once again, this aircraft is not study level, but you can do what you need to do, I guess. Sounds sound really good as well, and hey look, once we open the canopy, the sound from the canopy is really good. I mean, obviously it's not coming from the canopy, but you know what I mean. The engine noise is well controlled with the canopy now. As you can see, it reduces when you close the canopy, and you hear it more when you open the canopy. In the original version it wasn't like this, so that is a great improvement. Okay, so I start taxiing away and I look up at the heads-up display, and you can see or hear the disappointment in my voice. I've got no clue what's going on here. It is a massive disappointment, and I would have thought they would have solved this issue, but clearly not. What a disappointment. I've got no clue what's going on there. It looks like quite a big mess. It appears to be a conflict with the taxi lines or something, I don't know. Apparently it can be reduced if you change your anti-aliasing, but you reduce anti-aliasing and the sim looks a lot worse. Please guys, just fix it. I know it might be difficult with the SDK, but in my opinion, that's not how it should be. I didn't cover this in my initial review because I wasn't too aware of it, if I'm being completely honest. I didn't look at this aircraft for long enough, and it made a pretty poor, biased review, I think. But anyway, aside from that, the sound has greatly improved, and hopefully that means the aircraft as a whole will improve. Taxiing is also a lot better now. It's not as sensitive, but it's still as sensitive as a fighter jet should be. Forgot to bring on canopy there. Luckily you can taxi with your canopy up to a certain extent, but there we go. So as I said at the beginning of this review, get a collection of the variants of the F15. I think it's all of them, but there might be a few others that the developer hasn't included. We'll take a look at them once we're up in the air. Taxiing has really improved in my opinion. It feels a lot nicer, a lot more how the aircraft should handle on the ground, I believe. Let's get over to the runway now and we'll fly up into the clouds. So here we go on the takeoff roll now, let's get up in the air. So I wasn't trimmed 100% correctly there, I don't know if you could tell, my rudders are playing up a bit. But honestly, takeoff performance has really improved with this aircraft. Let's get our flaps up and gear up now. Beautiful. And look at this aircraft, my goodness, I remember the first time on takeoff it was all wobbly and I was crashing and it was just horrible. And in addition to that, performance in the air, if you can remember on my initial review, it was lag spiky, it really was. I mean, you drop down to like 2 FPS every 30 or 50 seconds or so, and it just was not nice. It happened so constantly, especially when you were on takeoff and landing. Now earlier today I tried this out in multiplayer, and a big concern for many people when they were on multiplayer with the original version is that the models weren't modelled correctly, they looked incredibly strange. Well, I can confirm this has been swapped and they've sorted this issue out and the models look spot on now. Let's get back to cruising in the sky now. Levelling off now, the clouds in Microsoft Flight Simulator really do look impeccable. Beautiful. This aircraft is a lot of fun and it's been really improved, as you can see. Now keep an ear out for the sonic boom, it will happen eventually, we just need to gain a bit more speed, as you guys can imagine. There we go, did you guys just hear that? We've got the sonic boom, we are now going supersonic. So before we go land and I give you my final thoughts on this aircraft, let's swap between the variants. So swapping from the C variant, we're now on the D variant. And you can see not too much difference here. All we've got is 2 seats in the cockpit now. So the D and E variants both have 2 seats. And a few more switches in the cockpit. It just looks a bit more modern to me. I don't think there's too much difference here. Just of course another guy in the back there. Now you guys may notice that there's that little white outline around the kind of front of the aircraft there. That's a bit of a pet peeve for me, I really don't like it, it's something to do with the clouds. Another thing that annoys me is that low texture scratch on the kind of cockpit glass. No clue what that's about, a bit disheartening there really because it does look a bit ugly. We've got our friend Jimmy sitting behind us, say hello to him. Bit of trivia here, this is the actual livery of the correct aircraft that operate outside of RAF Lakenheath, or out of RAF Lakenheath I should say. You can see handling does look pretty good. It flies a lot better since the recent version, but now let's swap over to another variant. So welcome to the F15E variant. This of course most notably different. cockpit from the previous two variants with a completely modernised cockpit. Also looks like we're getting some icing issues now. Maybe the icing's turned off since I've swapped aircraft using developer mode, so let's get that on. That's always a good idea. Very strange, icing seemed to disappear quickly, like within a few seconds there. Not too sure how realistic that is. I don't imagine it is overly realistic, seeing as it's like minus 25 degrees outside. Let's power onto those afterburners now so you guys can get a listen of them. A bit crackly in my opinion, but they do sound beautiful. This one has got my favourite cockpit, I really do like it. This is the Tiger Meet Strike Eagle, of course got a very symbolic livery there. If you see this aircraft you're not going to forget it. And finally we've got the F15I. Now this is the only variant we've got that is operated by a foreign air force, not the USAF. Of course the livery kind of gives it away, but yeah. Two different here in the cockpit since from the E anyway, and we're still getting that horrible heads-up display bug. I don't know, maybe it's meant to be like that in the aircraft in real life, but I really don't imagine so. I reckon that the pilots would get quite annoyed, almost annoyed, as I am. We're now going to hop over to the original variant where we're in the F15C and take a look at landing. Okay, so I just had my first approach at Marham and I just really struggle with these aircraft, I'm not going to lie. So I aborted that and I decided to circle around and try and land again. Now on approach I put my flaps down, my gear down, my gear's still down I believe, I should probably bring it up. Tested the air brake, it all worked fine. It just seems, I don't know, under 50 feet the aircraft goes a bit berserk. It might just be my flying skills, but anyway we'll circle around and try. We're fully ready to land, everything's set up, so it's just a matter of getting lined up and getting those wheels on the ground. Now as I was on approach, we haven't set ourselves up greatly here, so it's not going to be a good landing, but I also noticed that the glass at the front seems a bit black, like compared to the back glass really next to us. I don't know what that's about, it might just be me being pedantic, but anyway, let's get ourselves lined up now. You know what I say, bad approach, bad landing. So I haven't got my hopes held high for this one. We are off the runway. Yeah, I just cannot land these aircraft. I don't know what it is, but personally these aircraft are not for me. I really just cannot land them. Let's take a look at the replay. So as you can see, Pilot Stud cannot pilot this aircraft. For me, I just cannot fly fighter jets. I don't know what it is. They're just too quick and sensitive for me, I guess. I guess I need a bit more practice with it. However, it doesn't mean I haven't had a chance to experience this aircraft. Let's hop in the cockpit and I'll give you my final thoughts and the pros and cons. I should also point out, I think the sound is dynamic. It kind of moves throughout your ears. It's not 100% there, but it's still pretty good. It might just be my ears kind of making up as a sort of illusion. But anyway, let's hop into the pros and cons. So the first pro is the wide variety of the aircraft varieties you get with this £26 aircraft. You get quite a few variants, they're all unique in their own special way, and while the aircraft itself doesn't feel too different, they do look beautiful, and of course it's quite likely an air force near you operates this plane, so it does make it more accessible to people. If you want to add weapons as well, I should be able to say, you can go down here and add the weapons, and as long as you put some sort of kilograms on, it will go and add it to the outside, which I think is a very nice touch. The sounds are really improved from the canopy to the afterburners. The sounds are really spot on, to be fair, certainly an improvement. Again, if you want a fun fighter jet in Microsoft Flight Simulator, then this is the bad boy for you. It does a class job at being that just a fun aircraft to go intercept your friends with. People were doing it with me on all multiplayer. I don't know who it was. Shout out to you two guys. There was two guys in F15s coming up and chasing me as I was recording my first shots for this video. In addition to that, the speed brake and flaps function very well and they look very beautiful, and the gear is modelled nicely as well. Also like the afterburners, but I'm going to ease them off now so I don't fly back onto the runway. Now let's get into the negatives, and as I said, this is a mixed bag. Now the first negative for me would be the heads-up display. It still seems to have that mirroring issue. I guess that's in the SDK, but I mean it doesn't look nice. I hope the developer can sort it out soon. Second negative is not all of the buttons working. I mean, really, we should be able to have this switch working, engine ice, because, I mean, that's a pretty fundamental thing. In all fairness, if your engines are iced up, you're not going anywhere. I should also say autopilot works very well. It's kind of a basic 2-axis autopilot, so it can roll left or right and pitch up or down, basically, kind of like that. Simple stuff, but it works. Another con of this aircraft is the rudder and stick in the middle there. To me, they just look a bit ported over and not much effort has been spent here, if I'm being honest. They could make this look a bit more modern, in my opinion. In addition to that, when you're powering down the engines in the cockpit, it does seem a bit abrupt. But outside, it sounds very nice. So there you have it, guys. Reviewing the DC Designs F15 and all their variants. For you, I hope you've enjoyed this video. You can get it on the Just Flight website down below. As always, this has been my own view, and I hope this has been a more balanced review than my original one. I'll see you guys around. Be sure to like, comment and subscribe. Check out my Amazon affiliate links for all the equipment I use down below. But from me today, that is all. Bye bye.